What's up, everybody? Chris back again from Top Notch Sports. This video is going to be on the top 10 NFL wide receivers. My opinions, of course. This again, culmination of last season, plus their body of work, last couple of seasons, reasons as to why, I think they are where they are, and all stuff of that nature as always. So let's just break it down. Number one, I think this is pretty undisputable, but I would say the number one NFL receiver is Eddie Royal. No, I'm just kidding. Number one receiver, Calvin Johnson. He's everything. Size at 6'5", 6'6", one of the taller receivers in the National Football League. Great speed, great playmaking ability as a deep threat. Also in terms of with the football, yards after the catch, great routes, can stop on a dime as, one of the better route runners too. Like I just said, he could stop on a dime. He can deke you out with his moves. He's very crisp route runner. So he's got it all. He does it better than everyone else, and the numbers don't lie. And he does it all with ridiculous attention from the opposing defense. So I think you got to rank him at number one. I don't think you can really, at this point in time, argue that he's not the number one NFL wide receiver. Number two, people might not concur with this, but I'm going to go with Larry Fitzgerald. To me, he's a poor man's Calvin Johnson in the fact that he's a smaller, less athletic Calvin Johnson. Like everything I just said about Calvin, if you really pay close attention to Larry Fitzgerald and his game, would apply to Larry Fitzgerald. Just like I said, poor man's Calvin Johnson. He's not the physical specimen. He's not quite as athletic. He's not quite as big or strong or fast. Even though he's very good at in his own right. It's just he doesn't match Calvin. But not a lot of people are parallel to Calvin Johnson in those regards. But he just doesn't have a quarterback between Lindley, Cobb, Leinart, John Skelton. The carousel of quarterbacks that, despite the fact that they don't have I understand that they don't have a good offensive line, but those guys are very poor decision makers, guys that couldn't even get the ball to him in space, at least give him a chance. So, and with all that said, he's still in the conversation of all these other guys, I'm talking about. Imagine if he had Matt Stafford throwing him the ball, or, other guys on the list like Andy Dalton or Jay Cutler, Tony Romo, or Matt Ryan throwing in the ball. It'd be incredible, because look what he did with Kurt Warner. He led that team to the Super Bowl and probably was the best player in the playoffs that season. And that's when he was a young guy. Now he's 30 years old. He's maybe just out of his prime, or his last year of his prime. Just imagine what he can do now. More experience. The Cardinals have a better all-around football team. Just the quarterback is weak. So I feel like Larry Fitzgerald, you got to put him there, because when he had the quarterback, you saw he was the best wide receiver in the game at that point in time. Number three, I'm going to go A.J. Green. He's got an above-average quarterback, maybe not a lot above average in Andy Dalton, but the great thing with them is they've aged together, so I think the chemistry is only going to improve with them. But he gets a ridiculous amount of attention from defenses, double teams, but the guy still, no matter what, gets open all over the field, not just on can he just catch a screen and, run with the ball? Can he just run open, get a slant? No. He gets open all over the field on the deep route, the short route, those little slants, screens, anything. He gets open all over the field despite the attention. And just imagine where this offense would be. It'd be horrible without him, because there's no other weapons for Andy Dalton to throw the ball to. So, and he still produces, of course, great, fantastic numbers. I think you got to put him at number three. Number four, I'm going to go Brandon Marshall. When you look at the size and the intangibles and the speed, athleticism, they are very similar, if not, I don't want to say identical, but close to identical to A.J. Green. All those factors. It's just, to me, I would say Green's better because he has a tougher task and he's younger. Marshall being in his prime, or already have gone through his prime years. But Brandon Marshall actually has a top 10 running back in Matt Forte there to at least take a little pressure off the defense, because Matt Forte commands a good amount of attention as a rusher and a pass catcher. So at least he has someone to take the pressure off of him, even though Brandon Marshall, the reason he's in this is because in the pass game he gets ridiculous amounts of attention, so many doubles, so many looks. But compared to AJ Green, he actually has a guy who's a weapon, Matt Forte, who can actually take a little pressure off him. AJ Green, not yet does AJ Green have that down in Cincinnati. Number 5, I'm going to go with Andre Johnson. He's been a little banged up. Last year, I don't think the injury problem was as much as a couple years ago. But the reason he's still at number 5, he's still number 1 in the AFC last year, I believe, in receiving yards. And because he's a physical, aggressive receiver who gets open all over the field. Just like I said with AJ Green, one of the better route runners in the game. You know, in terms of, like all I said with Calvin Johnson, he is a solid deep threat. Maybe not as good as he used to be because, you know, injuries are hampering him a little bit. His body's breaking down a little bit, so he might not have the speed and the agility, but he's still a solid deep threat. And you know, the only reason I wouldn't put him above the 4 I named is because he's got more help. The Texans' offensive line keeps Matt Schaub upright. He's got a solid QB in Matt Schaub. They can run play action there. He's got one of the better tight ends in Owen Daniels. Top 3 running back Arian Foster. So he's got a good amount of help. Produces numbers, but I don't think his task is as tall as the top 4 I named. But yet he's still a fantastic receiver who I would want on my football team. That's 5. Number 6, I'm going to go Julio Jones. I look at him and I see a very talented young receiver, but he's already great. I already think he's a legit number 1 on the Atlanta Falcons. Playmaking all over the field, especially he's just such a great deep threat. His catch rate is ridiculous. You throw the ball up to him, he's one of the best at just bringing it down. But playmaking all over the field, especially as a deep threat, great size, speed. I just would put him below the 5 I named just because, you know, what I alluded to with Andre, he has probably one of the best supporting casts in football. Plays along another guy in my top 10, Roddy White, great receiver, one of the better tight ends in the game, and a Tony Gonzalez, very solid quarterback, and Matt Ryan, one of the best passing attacks in the NFL. So I don't think the pressure put on him is quite as much as the guys I named ahead of him. Not to say he's not a great wide receiver. So that's why I'll put him at 6. Number 7, I'm going to go with Roddy White here, his teammate. Same reason why he's not higher. Plus, just ability-wise, I don't think he's higher, even though I think he's a fantastic player. But one of the better possession receivers in the National Football League. Great. He's great in between the 20s. So I also would. He's a very good red zone receiver. But he can also, along with that great possession receiving, he can really take the top off of defense, particularly on that post route. He's great on that post route, getting open and running under the football and catching it. And he's been a consistent franchise player for this team. Before Julio Jones came, before the Falcons, you know, shot up to this 13-3 team, before the Falcons, you know, really built this identity as one of the best passing attacks in the league. He was always the consistent franchise player. Shows up every Sunday. I think you got to have him in your top 10. I'll put him at number 7. Number 8, I'm going to go Dez Bryant. When healthy, I think he honestly, like, that's the only reason he's not higher to me is health. I want to see him do it for 16 games consistently, but when I look at the guy, he could honestly be one of the best receivers in the game. I mean, he's a great deep threat. Now, I apologize for not alluding to this earlier, but when I look at a deep threat in terms of the tangibles and intangibles, I look at, do you have the speed to run past a defensive back? And do you have the ability, you know, and to run under, catch the football? Do you have ball skills? And of course, are you able to go up and win those jump balls, those 50-50 balls? Dez Bryant showed he can do both of those and at a very high level. Now, to have both as a deep threat is one thing, but now you keep looking at it, his playmaking is great. He's a guy who can get open, and once he catches the ball, like you know, if one guy misses him, a couple guys miss him, you're worried about this guy taking it to the house. So he's great with the ball in his hands, yards after the catch and things of that juncture, and he's a great returner, punt returner. I don't know if he does kick returns. Check me on that, but I know he does punt returns. So all those intangibles in one guy, that's incredible. Usually it takes 2 or 3 guys But now you put it all in one. The only reason he's not higher for me is just because he's got to stay healthy for a whole year. That's the only thing. Not have a great go on a tear at the end of the year like last season. I got to see it the whole year. But I think this year he might do it. I think all the stuff, the injury problems, the family problems, I think are more behind him at this point in time. Number 9, I'm going to go with Demaryius Thomas. Very good, solid receiver, legit number 1, great size and speed. One of the better red zone type of threats, deep threats. You know that guy because he's tall, he's fast, good ball skills, just like I alluded to as a deep threat. So he's great in that regard. And when he gets the ball in his hands, he's good with the ball in his hands because he can break tackles with his size. He can run past you with the speed. So I think you got to have him there. Only reason he's not higher for me is because he's got Peyton Manning throwing him the ball, who's one of the best quarterbacks ever. I feel like, all the guys I mentioned above, I mean, just imagine Calvin Johnson or Larry Fitzgerald having Peyton Manning throwing the ball. That's crazy. Or A.J. Green or Brandon Marshall. Imagine Des Bryant getting the ball thrown to him by Peyton Manning, or Andre Johnson putting up great numbers with Matt Schaub. Just imagine him with Peyton Manning. Wow. I mean, not that Demaryius isn't on the level of those guys and like he's so much worse, but I think all those guys would even be better. And he plays aside Eric Decker, who's a very solid young receiver in his own right. Not a lot of great receivers, these elite receivers, not a lot of them, except for Julio and Roddy White, have a guy on the opposite side that can make plays across for them. So that's a big factor. So I'm going to put him at number 9. Number 10, I'm going to go with Vincent Jackson here. Vincent Jackson, to me, is not on the level of these guys in terms of short yardage, route running, ability to get open on the intermediate and short routes. He's not that he's not good at that. He's not on the level of these guys in that regard. But as a deep threat, he's as good as it gets because of his size. He's got great speed for anybody. Never mind a guy that's 6'5" and strong. He's very, very fast. Great ball skills, great leaping ability. So you put all that together in one guy running down the field. He's one of the best deep threats in the game. So, and you see his impact. The reason he's got to be in the top 10. The Chargers' pass game last year, it wasn't what it was. Missing him, they definitely missed him. Not to say a few guys didn't step up like a Malcolm Floyd and a Denario Alexander, but not like Vincent Jackson. And you saw his impact on the Buccaneers because Mike Williams, who was their one receiver, couldn't really be relied upon as the number 1 anymore. So he was the number 2, and you saw how, even though Josh Freeman had his struggles, how much better their pass game got, just from the standpoint of guys that can make plays and more big plays because of a guy like Vincent Jackson, who just is such a great playmaker, especially down the field. I think you got to have him as your number 10. He can really change the complexity of a passing attack. Okay, and then looking into the top 10, I have Deshaun Jackson. This guy is everything I said about Des Bryant would apply to Deshaun Jackson, except Deshaun Jackson's just smaller, but he's even faster. So like I said, he can get open and catch the ball and make plays with his feet. Because again, one guy, two guy, maybe a few guys miss him, maybe even one guy misses him. This guy, you really got to look. He might take it to the house. One of the fastest players in the game, and then getting down the field, he's great at. He returns punts as good as anybody else in the National Football League. So, and you look at a few years ago when he had good quarterback play, which he hasn't had the last couple years. He was a top receiver with Michael Vick. So if Michael Vick can step it up and play at a higher level, you're going to see Deshaun Jackson probably make this list again. So I thank you for watching, and just to refresh, I got Calvin Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, A.J. Green, Brandon Marshall, Andre Johnson, Julio Jones, Roddy White, Des Bryant, Demaryius Thomas, Vincent Jackson, and then Deshaun Jackson looking into the top 10. I'd love to debate with you guys as always, and stay tuned because I'm going to have another top 10 video coming up. Thank you for watching.